Hello everyone, welcome to the channel again. So till now we have studied about Plato and Aristotle. Plato said that poetry is dangerous and poets should be escorted out from the ideal society. Then comes Aristotle. He says that no, poetry is instead valuable. Why? Because it empties the dangerous emotions that are stored inside your head and body. And he introduced two of the concepts which were mimesis and catharsis, saying that these are important for cleansing the whole body. After that comes the next writer, the next critic, who was Longinus. And he asks most different and most humane question which maybe the other two has not even asked. And that was, what makes poetry great? What makes poetry so jaw-dropping that whenever we read it, we sit with the lines which are provided to us, which are given to us in the poem? And why do some lines of the poetry gives us goosebumps? That was a question that was asked by Longinus. Now, before moving forward, we must be aware that who is actually Longinus. So we don't know the real thing and the real background of Longinus. We had a work which was on the Sublime, and we had no author of him. So relating some of the approximation, we say that on the Sublime is written by Longinus. There is some kind of story, but for now reference we can say that its main author was not known, so we refer on the Sublime to the Longinus. It was addressed to his friend Posthumus Terentianus, and the Greek title of On the Sublime is Perihypsis. Other than that, it was written around 1st century AD. That is all which we need to know about Longinus through the exam perspective. Now, you may ask that what on the earth is sublime? So, sublime is not any pretty and beautiful word which you can say that, okay, this poetry is looking pretty, so it is having the sublimity nature. No, that is not sublime. Sublime, you can understand in the simple words that sublime is something which makes the poetry so beautiful, so enhanced, that we just sit down with the thoughts that has been provided in the poem. So, when we will be studying further, then we will get to know that what actually are the sublimity nature, what actually are the keywords that we are going to study and that should be in a poem to make the poem sublime in nature. But before that, we must know about the two things that Longinus told us. That was true sublime and false sublime. Now, Longinus said that there are some of the poems which can make you motivated, which can make you feel motivated, and which can make you feel that this is a wow poem. That is a false sublime. Anything that is on the temporary basis, that is a false sublime. But on the opposite side, he said that there exists true sublime as well. Now, what is true sublime? Anything that keeps motivating us, anything that keeps making us feel awestruck, which whenever we will feel that this is something extra, this is something different each time we will read it, no matter we will read it now or 1,000 years later. That is true sublime according to Longinus. On the top of that, he introduced 5 sources of sublime that are important for a poem to have, to make it look great and to feel great. And 2 of them are natural, and 3 of them are something which is a craft or art and which can be learned easily. So it starts with the grandeur of thought, strong emotions, figure of speech, noble diction, and dignified composition. These are the 5 sources of sublime which are important. Now, what does grandeur of thought says? That we should always think big. We should always dream big, think big. That will help us to have the bigger perspective of the things. And when we will think extra, think big, and have different perspectives, then we will be able to serve human beings the different thing. So it is important for a poet or for a person to think big, to have grandeur of thoughts, and it is natural. Now the second is strong emotions. The emotions should be strong. You can't feel that okay, this is just we did it, we were feeling lazy, and that's why we wrote it, that's why we didn't feel like doing it. We should not be in that situation. Instead of that, we should feel strong emotions, strong urge to live life, strong urge to motivate people. That is what enhances poetry and the skills, and it is also natural. The third is figure of speech. Metaphors, simile, personification, whatever figure of speech we have, using all of them in the most desirable manner. I mean, you can't use just heavy words of language, heavy words of metaphors and simile to show people that, okay, I know this, and if I know this, I have used these lines and these words in the poem, then this poem is great. You can't do this. He says that whatever figure of speech you are doing, that should look like that this word is meant to be here. It should give us feel that this is where this word should be most alive. Only then we should use all types of figure of speech which we can use in the poem, not just to show. The fourth point is noble diction. How the words are chosen, which words are preferred among the other words. That is important for a poem to look different, to look great. The last is dignified composition, that how the words are arranged in a poem and to make it feel great. So overall, these are the five sources of sublimity that are important according to the Longinus eyes, and also according to the NET JRF preparation as well. At least you must know these five sources of sublimity which are important for you. Now moving forward, he also asks that is it important that should we have only natural, or should we have only all these skills to be learned only? At that point he says that no, both of the point is important for us. Like in five sources of sublime, we learned that two of them were natural and three of them were learned. Last three of them were learned. Okay, so he says that it is important for us to be born with this ability, and then we should stay in this life, and then we should polish it with our skills, with our efforts and hard work. When both of these things will be combined, both of these skills will be combined, only then we can produce some great work. This was the assumptions, and this was the idea of Longinus. He introduced three vices as well that can kill sublimity, and that should be avoided while writing a poem, while crafting any of the work. These were the bombast words, puerility, and false emotions. Bombast means words that are used and that are too big for the idea. So there is no use of using these words. The second is puerility, which is idea is too small. And I also explained you in the five sources of sublimity that how grandeur of thoughts is important for a poem to look great, to feel great, and to make people feel awestruck. So you can't risk having the small idea. The last vice is false emotion. Faking the emotion which you are not even feeling. You are just writing because you think that this is something which will move the audience. And then you are writing just to sake of writing. That is a false emotion, and you should not write anything with the false emotion. This is what Longinus used to believe. You should feel it first in your heart. Only then it can move other people. If you have felt it that, oh, yes, this is something which is personal to me. So these are the three voices that should be avoided to make a poem look drastically great, and to make a poem feel awestruck. Now he also exclaims one of the questions, and you may also be asked this question in your exam as well, that can genius break the rules? Because he has put three of the five of the sources that are important, three of the vices that are not important, that should be avoided. So he says that if a genius is there and he is writing a poem, then can he break the rules? He says that as long as it is making the people motivated, making the people instruct and delight, it is using the sublimity factor, then it is okay to break the rules. If it is not moving the peoples, then that is of no use, then there is no use of breaking the rules as well. Now there is one more factor that is important, that is he the first romantic critic? So yes, he is the first romantic critic. Why? Because he used the soul-centered approach. He used imagination. He used fancy. All of those things that were the characteristics of the romantic literature that were used by Wordsworth, Coleridge, and Shelley, Keats. These were their characteristics, and these were used by Longinus. So yes, we can say that he was the first romantic critic. Now, he also worked as a comparative critic as well. At that point of time, where comparative literature was not even the big idea and the big lens. Why? Because we see that he compared the works and the style of writing of Cicero, who was the Roman critic, and Demosthenes, who was a Greek critic. So these were the orators whom he used to compare them, to compare the style of writing which they used. So he was ahead of the time he was living. We can say this. So these were the important things. These were the important factors which you must know about the Longinus before sitting in the exam. And that's it for today. We'll see you soon in the next video with the topic Horace.